If you see this man, call police right away. He is wanted for the murder of a woman right outside her apartment complex.
April 21st, 2024. A quiet afternoon in Parkville, Maryland. The kind of day that should have been unremarkable. People going about their lives, running errands, returning home. But for 27-year-old Shakeia Allen, this would be the last day of her life. She was outside the Renew apartment complex, her heart pounding, her voice shaking. She wasn't just another passerby. She was running, desperate, pleading. Her words cut through the air. Words no one ever wants to say. I have a protective order against you. A final attempt to stop the inevitable. A desperate hope that the piece of paper meant to protect her would somehow make a difference. And then gunfire. Shot after shot, echoing through the parking lot. By the time the chaos settled, Shakeia lay motionless on the ground. The person responsible? Someone she once loved. Someone the law had already warned her about. But that warning wasn't enough. What went wrong? How does a woman do everything she's supposed to? Leave, seek help, file for protection. Only to end up as another name in a growing list of tragedies. Shakeia Allen wasn't the first. And unless something changes, she won't be the last. Do protective orders actually protect? Or are they just another false sense of security? Let us know in the comments. Because this story isn't just about Shakeia. It's about the countless others who are still out there, hoping they won't be next. Shakeia Allen was more than just a name in the headlines. She was a daughter, a mom, a friend, and a woman with dreams that stretched far beyond the life she was forced to leave behind. At 27, she had her entire future ahead of her, plans, ambitions, and the drive to make something of herself. Those who knew her described her as kind-hearted and determined, someone who always found a way to push forward, no matter the obstacles in her path. Growing up, Shakeia had learned the value of resilience. Life wasn't always easy, but she faced challenges with quiet strength, refusing to let hardships define her. She was the type of person who showed up for others, the one who made time for her family and friends, even when she had a million other things to do. She wasn't the kind of woman who sought trouble or drama. She just wanted to live her life in peace. But peace would become harder and harder to find when she met Amir Johnson. At first, their relationship seemed promising. Amir was charming, attentive, someone who knew how to say the right things. Their connection grew quickly, and before long, they moved in together, taking what felt like the next natural step in their relationship. But something shifted. The man Shakeia had once seen as caring and protective began to show another side, one that was possessive, controlling. Friends started to notice the change in her, the way she seemed more cautious with her words, the way she looked over her shoulder a little too often. There were moments of tension, flashes of anger from Amir that seemed to come out of nowhere. But like so many in her situation, Shakeia held on to the hope that things would get better, that the man she had fallen for would somehow go back to being the person he was in the beginning. But things didn't get better. They got worse. And soon, Shakeia would realize that the man she once trusted was capable of something far more dangerous than she ever imagined. In the beginning, Shakeia Allen believed she had found someone she could build a life with. Amir Johnson was attentive, always checking in on her, making her feel like she was the center of his world. At first, it felt like love, the kind that makes you feel safe, cherished. But love shouldn't feel suffocating. It should make you question your own instincts. It shouldn't leave you feeling trapped. The shift happened slowly, so subtly that even Shakeia may not have noticed at first. Amir's attention, once flattering, started to feel like surveillance. He needed to know where she was at all times, who she was with, what she was doing. He would call constantly, sometimes under the guise of concern. But the questions never felt like they came from a place of love. They felt like warnings, as if she needed to be careful about how she answered, as if a wrong response could change everything in an instant. Her friends began noticing, too. She wasn't the same vibrant woman they knew. The Shakeia who used to laugh freely, who was always the first to show up for the people she cared about, was now making excuses, canceling plans at the last minute, checking her phone with nervous glances. It wasn't just about control. There were moments when the tension between them turned into something darker. Shakeia confided in a close friend that Amir had a temper. He wasn't just angry. He was unpredictable. One moment everything would be fine, and in the next he would explode over something small. A text she took too long to respond to. A conversation she had with someone he didn't approve of. And when the argument started, they didn't end with just words. Doors were slammed. Objects thrown. On more than one occasion, Amir had punched a hole in the wall near her, his fists tightening, as if he was holding back something worse. She tried to justify it at first. He wasn't like this all the time. He always apologized afterward, promising he would change. And for a little while he would, but it never lasted. The cycle repeated, each time more intense than before. Shakeia started feeling like she was walking on a tightrope, never knowing when the next storm would come. The breaking point came on a night that should have been ordinary. Shakeia had gone out with a friend, something she rarely did anymore. Amir had called, asking where she was when she was coming home. She could hear the edge in his voice, the tension simmering just beneath the surface. When she walked through the door later that night, she barely had time to put her keys down before he was in front of her, demanding answers. His voice was sharp, his eyes filled with something she couldn't quite name. And then, for the first time, his anger turned physical. She didn't tell many people what happened that night, but those closest to her saw the change. She was done making excuses, done hoping things would get better. The next day, she made the decision to leave. Moving out wasn't easy. Amir didn't just let her walk away. There were threats, arguments, moments that made her second-guess whether she was doing the right thing. But she had already made up her mind. She packed her things and left, determined to reclaim the life she had before him. But leaving wasn't enough. Amir wasn't the kind of man to let go quietly, and Shakeia was about to find out just how dangerous he really was. After leaving Amir Johnson, Shakeia Allen knew one thing for certain. She wasn't safe. The way he looked at her, the messages he sent, the veiled threats that lingered between his words, it all made clear that he wasn't ready to let go. She had seen enough warning signs to know that this wasn't just going to fade away. She needed help. She needed protection. That's when she turned to the legal system. She filed for a protective order, hoping it would be the barrier that kept Amir away. It wasn't an easy decision. She knew it would escalate things, that it would anger him even more. But what choice did she have? She had seen what he was capable of, and the fear was beginning to consume her. The court granted her a temporary restraining order, a piece of paper that legally required Amir to stay away. But what does a piece of paper really do when someone is determined to cause harm? Shakeia followed all the right steps, believing that the system in place was designed to protect people like her. But the reality was far more complicated. A hearing was scheduled for April 15th, 2024. This was supposed to be the moment when the restraining order could be made permanent, a chance for Shakeia to secure stronger legal protection. But something happened that day, something that would seal her fate. Neither she nor Amir showed up in court. The reasons remain unclear. Did Shakeia feel overwhelmed, exhausted by the process? Did she believe that Amir had finally backed off? Or was it simply a scheduling issue? An oversight that cost her everything? Whatever the reason, the result was devastating. Without her presence, the case was dismissed. The protective order vanished, as if it had never existed. And just days later, the man she had tried so hard to escape would prove exactly why she had feared for her life in the first place. April 21st, 2024, began like any other Sunday afternoon in Parkville, Maryland. The streets were calm, the hum of everyday life carrying on as usual. For Shakeia Allen, it should have been just another day, one without fear, without looking over her shoulder, without the weight of a past relationship still threatening to consume her. But unknown to her, the man she had fought so hard to escape was watching, waiting for the moment to strike. In the hours leading up to the attack, Shakeia went about her day, unaware that it would be her last. Maybe she had started to believe, even if just for a moment, that she was free from Amir's grasp. Maybe she thought that after all the chaos, he had finally moved on. Or maybe, deep down, she still carried the nagging fear that he wasn't done with her yet. She was at the Renew apartment complex on Whitelaw Place, a place that should have been safe. It was broad daylight just after 3 p.m., with people around, cars parked nearby, witnesses who would later recount the horror of what they saw. Shakeia was in the parking lot when she saw him, Amir Johnson, There was no mistaking what was about to happen. The moment their eyes met, she knew. She ran. Her body moved before her mind could fully process the reality unfolding around her. She sprinted across the lot, desperation in every step, her voice carrying through the air as she screamed for help. "I have a protective order against you." The words were more than a plea. They were a final attempt to stop him, to make him reconsider. But Amir wasn't listening. He had already made up his mind. He was there for one reason, and he wasn't going to leave without finishing what he started. The first shot rang out, a sharp crack slicing through the afternoon stillness. Then another, and another. Shakeia collapsed to the ground, the life she fought so hard to protect slipping away with each pull of the trigger. Witnesses stood frozen, helpless, watching in horror as Amir ensured there was no chance for her to survive. The parking lot, a place that had been so ordinary just moments before, became a crime scene in an instant. By the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. Shakeia was pronounced dead at the scene, her body lying in the open, a chilling testament to the system that had failed her. She had done everything she was supposed to, left the relationship, sought help, filed for protection. Yet, none of it had saved her. And Amir? He was gone, slipped away before law enforcement could get to him, vanishing into the same shadows that Shakeia had fought so hard to escape. In the days and months that followed, the hunt for him would continue. But for Shakeia, there would be no second chance. No justice that could bring her back. Only questions. How had this happened? And how many more women would meet the same fate before something changed? In the chaotic moments after the shooting, as the echoes of gunfire faded into the air, Amir Johnson was already gone. He had vanished as quickly as he had appeared, slipping away before law enforcement could arrive, while witnesses scrambled to make sense of what had just happened, while paramedics rushed in only to confirm what everyone already feared. Amir was nowhere to be found. The police response was swift. Officers arrived at the scene, securing the area, questioning bystanders, gathering what little information they could in the immediate aftermath. But one thing was clear. Amir had planned this. This wasn't a crime of impulse. He had waited for the right moment, executed his plan, and disappeared before anyone could stop him. Authorities immediately identified him as the prime suspect, releasing his name and image to the public. He was dangerous, armed, on the run. The search for him intensified, with officers scouring the city, following every lead, questioning those who knew him. But Amir had a head start, and he knew exactly what he was doing. His last known whereabouts were traced to Baltimore County. But after that, his trail went cold. For months, the investigation pressed forward, with law enforcement working tirelessly to track him down. There were tips, possible sightings, people who claimed they had seen him in passing, in a different state, in an area he was known to frequent. But none of it led to his capture. Each lead brought hope, only to end in frustration. The search wasn't just about justice. It was about preventing him from hurting anyone else. With each day that passed, the urgency grew. The longer he remained free, the greater the risk. Had he changed his appearance? Was he being sheltered by someone? Had he fled the state entirely? The questions piled up, but the answers remained elusive. As the manhunt continued, one chilling reality became clear. A man who had brutally murdered someone in broad daylight had managed to disappear. And until he was found, the fear remained. If Amir Johnson is still out there, where do you think he could be hiding? Let us know in the comments. The shock of Shakeia Allen's murder rippled far beyond the parking lot where she took her last breath. It wasn't just another crime. It was a devastating confirmation of a system that had failed to protect her. The community was outraged. Friends, family, and even strangers who had never met Shakeia found themselves mourning a woman whose story had become all too familiar. How many more would have to suffer before something changed? Activists and advocacy groups wasted no time in speaking out. Candlelight vigils were held in her honor, her name becoming a rallying cry for those demanding stronger protections for domestic violence victims. Social media flooded with messages of grief and anger, with people questioning how a woman who had done everything right, who had sought help, who had followed the law, could still end up dead. One of the loudest voices came from the House of Ruth, an organization dedicated to supporting survivors of domestic violence. They, along with similar groups, called for urgent reforms, pushing for laws that wouldn't just exist on paper, but would actually keep people safe. Protective orders, they argued, meant nothing if they weren't enforced. Victims needed more than court documents. They needed real security, real intervention before it was too late. Discussions emerged about what could have been done differently. Should Shakeia have been provided with an advocate to ensure she made it to court for her hearing? Should there have been more follow-ups after she was granted the temporary restraining order? And most importantly, what steps needed to be taken to prevent the next Shakeia Allen from becoming another headline? But beyond the activism, beyond the policy discussions, one question remained: what could everyday people do to help? For those watching from the outside, it wasn't just about witnessing another tragedy. It was about taking action, raising awareness about the warning signs of abuse, supporting organizations that provide resources for survivors, and pushing for legislative change were all ways to make a difference. For anyone experiencing domestic violence, knowing where to turn could be the difference between life and death. Resources existed: hotlines, shelters, legal aid. But many victims didn't know how to access them or feared retaliation if they did. That needed a change. Shakeia's story was a painful reminder that escaping abuse wasn't as simple as walking away. It was about survival in a system that often left victims vulnerable. And until real change happened, until protective measures became more than just words on paper, there would always be another story like hers waiting to unfold. Shakeia Allen's story is more than just a tragic headline. It's a heartbreaking reminder of how domestic violence can escalate when warning signs are ignored and protective measures fall short. Her life was filled with dreams, relationships, and hope for a future that was stolen in an instant. But the impact of her death didn't end in that parking lot. It spread to her family, her friends, and an entire community left grappling with grief and frustration. Her case forces us to ask difficult questions. How could someone who sought help still end up murdered in broad daylight? How many other victims are out there right now, afraid for their lives, waiting for a system to protect them before it's too late? And most importantly, what needs to change to ensure that stories like Shakeia's don't keep repeating? Domestic violence isn't just a private issue. It's a crisis that demands real solutions. Stronger enforcement of protective orders, better support for survivors, and holding abusers accountable before violence turns deadly are just the beginning. But real change doesn't happen unless people demand it. Do you believe the legal system failed Shakeia? What more should be done to protect victims? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters, and conversations like this are the first step toward change. If you found this story important, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest true crime cases. Together, we can shine a light on these tragedies and push for a world where stories like Shakeia Allen's are no longer reality.